new book at the moment called Epiphany, which is based on a series of interviews with people about how they discovered their talent. I'm fascinated by how people got to be there. It's really prompted by a conversation I had with a wonderful woman who most people have never heard of. She's called Gillian Lynn. Have you heard of her? Some have. She's a choreographer and everybody knows her work. She did Cats and Phantom of the Opera. She's wonderful. I used to be on the board of the Royal Ballet, as you can see. And anyway, Gillian and I had lunch one day. I said, how'd you get to be a dancer? And she said it was interesting. When she was at school, she was really hopeless. And the school in the 30s wrote to her parents that we think Gillian has a learning disorder. You couldn't concentrate, she was fidgeting. I think now they'd say she had ADHD. Wouldn't you? But this was the 1930s, and ADHD hadn't been invented, at this point, so it wasn't an available condition. People weren't aware they could have that. Anyway, she went to see this specialist. So this oak panel room, and she was there with her mother, and she was sat on this chair at the end, and she sat on her hands for 20 minutes while this man talked to her mother about all the problems Gillian was having at school. And at the end of it, because she was disturbing people, their homework was always late and so on, little kid late. In the end, the doctor went and sat next to Gillian and said, Gillian, I've listened to all these things your mother's told me. I need to speak to her privately. So he said, wait here, we'll be back, we won't be very long. And they went and left her. But as they went out of the room, he turned on the radio that was sitting on his desk. And when they got out of the room, he said to her mother, just stand and watch her. And the minute they left the room, she said she was on her feet, moving to the music. And they watched for a few minutes, and he turned to her mother, and he said, Mrs. Lynn, Gillian isn't sick, she's a dancer. Take her to a dance school. I said, what happened? He said, she did. I can't tell you how wonderful it was. We walked in this room, and it was full of people like me. People who couldn't sit still. People who had to move to think. They did ballet, they did tap, they did jazz, they did modern, they did contemporary. She was eventually auditioned for the Royal Ballet School. She became a soloist. She had a wonderful career at the Royal Ballet. She eventually graduated from the Royal Ballet School, found her own company, the Gillian Dance Company. Met Andrew Lloyd Webber. She's been responsible for some of the successful musical theatre productions in history. She's given pleasure to millions, and she's a multi-millionaire. Somebody else might have put her on medication and told her to calm down. Now, I think
functional assessment of behavior, problem-solving process for addressing student problem behavior.
Teachers every day deal with disrupting students' behavior. Lack of interest, excessive talking or questioning, self-injuring behavior, tantrums, difficulty following instructions are just a few examples. How the teacher responds varies by grade level, subject, teacher's experience, even cultural background of teacher as well as community, but most often teachers react with either verbal reprimands, isolation, detention, or suspension. But behavior occurs in the context and is a form of communication. Moreover, behaviors continue because they are reinforced. So when attempting to address and change any of unwanted behavior, one needs to consider the child and the environment. Remember that misbehavior works for the child at some level. It serves a certain function or addresses a certain need, such as seeking attention from others, seeking something tangible like an item, activity, or food, seeking sensory input from the action itself, avoiding a person, task, item, or environment. And we need to understand that it is that the child wants and attempts to identify the replacement behaviors that would serve the student, but in an acceptable way. Instead of trying to suppress the problem behaviors, we need to make it irrelevant, inefficient, and ineffective.
Okay, in our example, we have a student who does not like writing assignments. So when we start off, the student screams and falls to the floor, and the consequence is that she gets the break she wants. When we first replace that behavior with a functional replacement behavior, she's now asking for a break and getting the break, but she's still not doing the work. Since our ultimate goal is for her to do the writing assignment, we are working towards the student doing the assignment and as a result getting the praise for completing the work. The praise for completing the work then becomes the consequence. We've replaced the behavior and the consequence.
As far as who conducts the assessment, this can vary from state to state, even district to district. It may require a behavior specialist or school psychologist if standardized testing is needed. Special or general education teachers, counselors, and administrators are also included.
There are 3 methods for conducting a functional behavioral assessment. In the first method, the indirect assessment, we're having interviews and we're giving out questionnaires for the teachers, the students, and other adults with direct responsibility. The goal here is to understand the students' likes, the dislikes, and long-term goals. We're getting to know the whole person. With a direct assessment, we need to observe the student across multiple settings. We need to record things such as who is present, specific behaviors, consequences, frequency of the behavior, and any outside factors. In hypothesis development, we're looking for a plausible explanation for the behavior. We're looking for acceptable behaviors to replace the undesired behavior. From this, the BIP, the Behavior Intervention Plan, is created.
Here are examples of a matrix and scatter plot to chart the relationship between specific instructional variables and student responses.
Regardless of who is charged with the responsibility to conduct a functional behavior assessment, emphasis should be on developing both a short and a long-term plan to enhance the student's ability to benefit as much as possible from classroom instruction. Students can be helped to accomplish this goal through positive behavior interventions based on accurate assessment of their individual needs. This goal is best accomplished before student behavior becomes so severe that formal disciplinary action is necessary. It is important to note that interventions should not be based upon one assessment measure alone or upon data collected by only one observer. Finally, it is very important that once the team agrees on a behavior intervention plan, everyone involved must agree to implement it consistently. If even one person feels he or she is unable to support the plan, it needs to be revisited. Inconsistent application of any intervention is likely to result in an increase in targeted inappropriate behavior or result in the presentation of new inappropriate behaviors.